Manipulators don't read minds. They read patterns, the same 6 or 7 reflexes present in almost every human being, repeating themselves in boardrooms, relationships, arguments, and advertisements. You think you're being persuaded. You're actually being operated. And the terrifying part is, you won't see it happening because the mechanism isn't external. It's installed inside you. Here's what almost nobody understands about manipulation. It isn't a battle of wits. It's a battle of triggers. Every successful manipulation, guilt trips, gaslighting, fake urgency, emotional blackmail, flattery, works the same way. It locates an automatic reflex in your mind and pulls it like a lever. You think you're making a decision, and you're actually executing a subroutine that's been running since childhood. 2,000 years ago, a group of philosophers identified these reflexes with terrifying precision. Not because they were psychologists, but because they were obsessed with one question: what makes a human being controllable? The Stoics weren't trying to be calm for the sake of being calm, and they were reverse engineering the human mind to find every backdoor a manipulator could use, and then sealing them, one by one. Today we're opening that blueprint: 7 hidden mechanisms, 7 reflexes manipulators rely on, 7 Stoic countermeasures that, once installed, make you almost impossible to control. This is Decode. Let's decode the architecture of influence. Section 1. The approval circuit. Here's something that will unsettle you. Most manipulation doesn't target your logic. It targets a single ancient circuit: the need to be seen as good, likable, agreeable. At first glance, this seems harmless. Wanting approval feels human, even healthy. But here's what most people never realize. The approval circuit is the single most exploited reflex in existence. Think about the last time someone said, "Wow, I thought you were different from everyone else," right before asking you for something. Or the friend who said, "I expected more loyalty from you," right after you set a boundary. And that's not an accident. That's a lever being pulled. The mind has a built-in fear. If people stop approving of me, I become unsafe. This isn't weakness. It's wiring from a time when social exile literally meant death. Tribes meant survival. Disapproval meant danger. Manipulators don't need to understand psychology to use this. They just need to notice that guilt, flattery, or disappointment makes you bend. The Stoics called the fix the dichotomy of control, separating what is yours to own, your character, your choices, from what is not, other people's opinions of you. Epictetus put it brutally: other people's judgments are not your business. They are their operating system, not yours. The aha moment is this: the moment you stop needing approval, you become unleverageable. There's nothing left to pull. A person who doesn't fear disapproval cannot be emotionally blackmailed. Memorable line: approval seekers are operated. Approval indifferent people are unreachable. Section 2. The urgency trap. Here's a pattern you've felt 1,000 times without naming it. The moment someone says, "We need an answer right now," your thinking gets worse, not better. That's not a coincidence. That's the design. The hidden part is this: urgency doesn't speed up your thinking. It bypasses it. When the brain perceives time pressure, it shifts from slow, deliberate reasoning into fast, reflexive survival mode. This is useful when a tiger is chasing you. It is catastrophic when you're signing a contract, agreeing to a relationship demand, or being pressured into a decision at 11 p.m. during an argument. Salespeople know this. Only 3 left in stock. Manipulative partners know this too. If you don't decide now, I'm done waiting. Both sentences do the same thing. They hijack your nervous system before your reasoning mind can even load. The deeper truth is that artificial urgency is rarely about the clock. It's about preventing you from consulting your own judgment. The Stoics had an antidote disguised as a daily exercise, the deliberate pause. Seneca wrote about reviewing the day's events before reacting to them, creating a gap between stimulus and response. That gap is everything. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself almost like a mental firewall. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Translation: your urgency is yours to control even when the world pretends otherwise. The aha moment. Real urgency rarely requires you to feel rushed. It requires the manipulator to feel rushed, because delay exposes the manipulation. Memorable line. Anyone who needs your answer before you can think doesn't want your judgment. They want your compliance. Section 3. The identity hook. This one is uncomfortable because it touches something most people never examine. Manipulators don't attack what you do. They attack who you think you are. A real friend would help me. If you loved me, you'd understand. Someone as smart as you should already know this. At first glance, these sound like compliments or simple appeals, but the deeper mechanism is identity-based persuasion. Attaching a behavior to your self-concept so that refusing the behavior feels like betraying your own identity. This works because your brain doesn't separate "I believe I am loyal" from "I must act loyal in this exact situation," even when the two are unrelated. Here's the unsettling part. The stronger your self-image, the more exploitable you are to this tactic. Unless you understand how identity works. The Stoics had a radical idea. Identity is not something to defend. It's something to examine. Epictetus taught that your role, friend, partner, employee, doesn't obligate you to actions that violate your principles. Your character is not proven by obedience. It's proven by consistency with your own values, even when someone insists otherwise. This is why Stoics constantly ask themselves, is this truly virtuous, or does it merely look like what others expect from someone like me? The aha moment. Manipulators don't need to control your actions directly. They just need to convince you that disagreeing with them contradicts who you are. Once you stop outsourcing your identity to other people's expectations, the hook has nothing to grab onto. Memorable line. Your identity is not a debt you owe to other people's expectations. Section 4. The emotional flood. Here's something rarely discussed. Manipulation is far less about words and far more about emotional volume. Yelling, crying, dramatic sighing, sudden silence, explosive anger. These aren't just emotional expressions. They're often tools, even when the person using them doesn't consciously realize it. What makes this even more fascinating is the mechanism behind it. Intense emotional displays trigger something called limbic hijacking in the people around them. Your nervous system mirrors theirs. Their panic becomes your panic. Their anger becomes your anxiety. This is why arguments escalate so easily. Emotion is contagious before logic even has a chance to speak. Manipulators, intentionally or not, use emotional flooding to short-circuit your reasoning. When you're overwhelmed, you're more likely to apologize for things you didn't do, agree to things you don't want, or shut down entirely just to stop the intensity. The Stoics identified this 2,000 years before neuroscience confirmed it. Seneca called anger temporary insanity, not because anger isn't valid, but because it disables judgment while it's active. Their countermeasure wasn't suppression, it was delay. Wait before reacting wasn't a soft suggestion. It was a tactical defense against being manipulated through emotional flooding. The aha moment is simple but powerful. Calm isn't a personality trait. It's a skill of timing. You don't have to respond at the emotional volume someone else sets. Memorable line. The first person to stay calm in a storm controls the room. not the loudest one. Section 5. The guilt engine. Most people think guilt is a moral compass, but here's the deeper truth. Guilt is also one of the most efficient manipulation tools ever discovered because it doesn't require force. It requires self-inflicted force. After everything I've done for you, I guess I'm just a burden then. I sacrifice so much and this is how you repay me. These statements don't accuse you of wrongdoing. They install wrongdoing inside your mind and let your own guilt do the rest. This is the most elegant form of manipulation because the manipulator doesn't even need to stay in the room. Once guilt is activated, you police yourself. The mind behaves this way because guilt evolved as a social repair mechanism. A signal that says, I may have harmed the group. Let me fix it. It kept early humans cooperative and connected, but manipulators learned to trigger this repair signal without actual harm occurring, manufacturing guilt out of nothing but tone and implication. The Stoics dismantled this with one piercing question used by Marcus Aurelius constantly. Did I act according to virtue? Not. Did I make someone upset? Not did I disappoint someone's expectations, but was my action just, honest, and aligned with reason? If yes, guilt is unearned and unearned guilt deserves no obedience. The aha moment. Guilt should only respond to actual wrongdoing, not someone else's disappointment. These are not the same thing, even though manipulators blur them intentionally. Memorable line. Manufactured guilt has no power over a mind that knows the difference between hurting someone and disappointing them. Section 6. The mirror distortion. This is where it gets unsettling because this mechanism doesn't just affect your decisions. It affects your perception of reality. Gaslighting works through a specific cognitive vulnerability. Humans trust confidence more than memory. That never happened. You're remembering it wrong. You're too sensitive, you always overreact. At first, this seems like a simple disagreement, but the deeper mechanism is far more dangerous. Repeated confident contradiction slowly erodes your trust in your own perception, replacing it with dependence on the manipulator's version of events. Neuroscience confirms what the Stoics intuited. Memory isn't a video recording. It's reconstructive, malleable, and socially influenced. Confidently delivered misinformation can override your own recollection if repeated enough. This is precisely why gaslighting is so devastating. It doesn't attack your choices. It attacks your epistemology, your ability to trust your own mind. The Stoics built a defense for this exact vulnerability. The practice of objective observation, recording events as they are, not as emotions later distort them. Marcus Aurelius literally wrote his observations daily, partly so emotion and other people's narratives couldn't quietly rewrite his memory. The modern version of this Stoic practice is simple but powerful. Write things down. Keep a record. Trust documented reality over someone else's confident denial. The aha moment. The antidote to gaslighting isn't arguing harder. It's anchoring to evidence, not emotion or repetition. Memorable line. Confidence is not truth, but repeated confidently enough it can replace truth unless you keep your own record. Section 7. The reaction reflex. This is the final layer, and the one that ties every previous mechanism together. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Manipulation cannot exist without your reaction. Every technique we've covered, guilt, urgency, flattery, gaslighting, emotional flooding, requires one final ingredient to succeed, an automatic, unexamined response from you. Manipulation isn't something done to you. It's something completed through you. This sounds harsh, but it's actually liberating because it means the final switch is always in your hands. The real mechanism is this. Manipulators don't control your actions directly. They control the stimulus. You still control the response. The illusion of powerlessness comes from collapsing the tiny gap between stimulus and response, reacting instantly, automatically, the way the manipulator predicted. This is the deepest Stoic discovery and arguably the most important psychological insight in their entire philosophy. Between what happens to you and what you do next, there is a space, and inside that space lives your freedom. Epictetus said it with brutal clarity. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of things. The manipulator creates the trigger. You create the meaning. And meaning is the only thing manipulation actually needs from you, and the aha moment, the one that unlocks everything. Manipulation isn't powerful. Automatic reaction is powerful. Remove automatic reaction and manipulation collapses because there's no longer a reflex left to pull. Memorable line: you cannot always choose what happens to you, but you can always choose what happens next. And that single choice is the one thing no manipulator can ever take. Closing. The hidden code revealed. Here is the larger pattern hiding beneath all 7 discoveries. Manipulation was never about manipulators being brilliant. It was about a handful of reflexes most people never examine. The need for approval, the fear of urgency, and the pull of identity, the contagion of emotion, the weight of unearned guilt, the fragility of memory under pressure, and the automatic reaction that completes the cycle. 7 reflexes, 1 operating system, and the Stoics didn't fight manipulation by becoming harder, colder, or more guarded. They fought it by becoming self-aware, by mapping their own mental architecture so precisely that nothing external could quietly hijack it. This is the hidden code. Manipulation isn't an external force breaking into your mind. It's an internal reflex manipulators have simply learned to trigger. Which means the moment you understand your own reflexes, really understand them, the entire game changes. You stop being predictable. You stop being exploitable. You become someone whose calm cannot be rushed, whose identity cannot be hijacked, whose guilt cannot be manufactured, whose memory cannot be rewritten, and whose reactions are no longer automatic but chosen. That is what the Stoics actually built 2,000 years ago. Not a philosophy of detachment, but a fortress of self-awareness. And once that fortress is built inside you, manipulation doesn't just fail. It becomes invisible, because there's nothing left in you for it to grab onto. This is psychode. And the deepest secret of the mind was never that other people are dangerous. It's that unexamined reflexes are. Master them. And you don't just become hard to manipulate, you become free.